From Pink Lady to First Lady, she's won the admiration of her audiences and the respect of her peers. Hi, I'm Ernie Manouse. Coming up on InnerVIEWS, our conversation with the multi-talented and award-winning actress, Stockard Channing. So have you accomplished what you set out to do?
What a way to start a conversation. I don't know. I'm pretty pragmatic. I think when we're younger, we all have fantasies of things we want to do. And then as we get older, we move through life. You realize that some of those fantasies really weren't appropriate. And then you find new things that you get satisfaction from you hadn't expected. So I think there's sort of a dialectic that operates in life.
Yeah. What were the things that you found along the path that you found were exciting and new that you weren't expecting?
Well, I'd have to sort of, roll back the tape in my head, which might take a while. But I couldn't say there's just one thing that stands out. I think it's a process. I think that's how most people lead their lives. And I'm more aware of a certain satisfaction I get from the actual process of working, as opposed to thinking it's going to lead me somewhere, which may be a definition of success that's externally imposed upon me, maybe by the world, the media, how I was raised, etc. So I think that if you're lucky, you find that you enjoy things that you enjoy, and it's always, I think the most exciting thing for me is to find out that my mind or my whatever talent I have is working in a new way, in a better way. As like if I approach a new piece of material, that I'm able to bring something to it still, because sometimes you think, I can only do one thing, I only have a narrow channel, and it's great when you can say, no, I still can be flexible and morph myself into other characters, say, that might tell yet another story.
You can do that. Do you find the industry allows you to do that, or is that a battle?
I haven't had the problem of typecasting, I think, as a lot of people have had, because I'm on this television series for 5 years, playing the First Lady. I sort of thought, is that going to limit me in some way? And it hasn't. I think maybe if I'd come out of nowhere, it would be more of a problem. But because I've been able to do other projects while I've been on the show, it's pretty much the same as it's always been for me.
Does it surprise you, the recognition that comes out of doing a TV series, when you've done so much film and you've done so much theater work, how complete, how all-encompassing it is an audience that watches you on TV?
I haven't found that to be an issue, really, because I've been around for a while, and I find that people come up to me, I never know what they're going to say they like that I've done. I did a movie a million years ago, the first thing I ever did, called The Girl Most Likely To, and it was a black comedy that I did, and it was really very, very long ago. And I'm amazed. People still come up to me and say, I love that. What was that called? So you never know what people see. And I think that's one of the benefits and the beauties of having a long career.
See, one of my favorites from a long time ago for you would be Cheap Detective.
Oh, really?
And it's funny because it's one of my favorites. I have it on DVD.
I actually made that movie at the same time I made a very obscure movie called Grease. Literally, I go back and forth between the two studios, and we were making them. So there you go. And for you like Cheap Detective. Yeah,
well, of course. Everyone likes Grease, too. Was that funny, playing that character, and that it's endured the way it has?
Yeah, I think that it's interesting. I have more affection for that character than I used to, because I thought, my God, if you're going to be in something that's that phenomenally huge, that still continues to be in the consciousness of the grandchildren of the people, that were doing it, because of the technological developments of the time we've lived in. I mean, if there hadn't been now DVD, but before that VHS machines, right. I don't think Grease would be remembered the way it is. But we arrived at that time. And I thought, well, I kind of like that kid, that sort of complex, weird, cranky, bitchy, kid that was a real adolescent to me. And I worked as hard on that as I would of anything with a kind of higher IQ, shall we say. So I was kind of grateful that I did work on it pretty hard, and so now I'm sort of proud of the fact that these kids like Rizzo so much.
We talked with Frankie Avalon before, and he was saying how they had to keep cajoling him to do this, and he was not interested at all in doing the film.
Yeah.
Was it something like that for you, or did you
No,
see
I
what it
needed
could
the job
be?
badly. I had a big sort of initial success in my film career, which sort of fizzled after about a year and a half because none of the movies I made had made any money. And Alan Carr, at the midnight hours, have asked me to do this, and I was grateful just to pay my rent for a few months. I had no idea it was going to turn into. And I thought it was kind of a strange choice given my background, but I said, well, it's a job like any other, and I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And as I said, I did every little acting procedure I would for if I was playing Shakespeare in my head, because I had a real sense of obligation to. Because it was a stretch from who I was, how old I was, and everything, and so we just did it.
Is acting a difficult job? And I guess to do acting well, I guess is the better way to put it.
I don't know how to answer that question. I just try to do it as well as I can. I've been doing it long enough that there is a certain technique which develops over the years, the way as I've been doing anything, a shorthand I have with my own unconsciousness, if you will. But I think it's very hard to talk about acting because it sounds so pretentious. And also, if you're film acting, some of it has to happen right that second. You don't get another shot at it. Yeah. And so it's luck, and there's the luck of the actual enterprise in which you're engaged, if it's going to be successful. Because if it's successful, you'll get a chance to do more of it. But if it's not, it can be, some of the best work I've ever done has been a very obscure endeavors that didn't, break through that membrane.
Right.
And these days, especially, it's really the luck of the draw whether you're going to, break through.
Take me back. Why in the world did you get into acting? What was it that called to you?
It's pretty stupid. I think it had a lot to do with the time in which I was a young person. I mean, I was a product of the 60s, 70s, rebellion and all that sort of stuff. And rebellion, and also a sense that you could make your life into anything you wanted it to, which was a very, very different kind of attitude about life than I had inherited, shall we say, in my family. It wasn't, when I was a little kid, that certainly wasn't in the air. And it enabled me to sort of go out and do something that was basically pretty stupid. Which was to try to be an artist. It wasn't to try to be famous. It wasn't trying to make a lot of money. The impulse those days would be, if you're going to make music, it wasn't because you were going to make millions of dollars as a recording artist as much as you just wanted to be an artist. And that state of mind, I think, is adjusted slightly, because now you get kids who think they want to be in show business. They don't necessarily want to be an actor.
Right.
And when times were very dark for me, I suppose, that I said, well, this is a calling to a degree. And it wasn't just that I wanted to be famous, you know what I mean? And that kind of calling is sort of what gets you through the times when you feel like a failure.
Right.
And so I don't know why I really started to do it, but it's like if you're going to be painting, if you find out you can paint, you get tremendous satisfaction from it, and your imagination is working. You say, I'm a painter, and I became an actor. And but I do think in hindsight it was a fairly foolish thing to do, but I did it. And once I started, I couldn't stop.
Reaction from your family, friends?
From my family, it was pretty negative.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I mean, they didn't. I think my mother felt she didn't pay for 4 years at Harvard to have me run off and join the circus, and I can't really blame her. But there you go. I did it.
If your life had gone a different route, what else would you have liked to have done?
I don't really know. I always had interest in design, which stood me in good stead, actually, being an actor, in terms of choosing clothes and wigs, makeup, and all of that, the external apparatus of acting. So I've always had an interest in when I was a kid. My mother always thought I was going to be a great dress designer, but I didn't.
But you achieved okay.
I did
well.
okay.
Yeah.
I did okay.
Tell me a
while.
bit about 6 Degrees of Separation.
Oh, I don't know where to begin. Ask me a question.
Okay. Why was that a project you wanted to be involved in?
Well, to be honest with you, I sort of backed into it. I was very close friends with John Guare. We'd known each other a long time. We'd done 2 plays together. But
the writer of
the writer of 6 Degrees of Separation. But I had just finished a play by Neil Simon that had the dubious distinction of being the first and only, to this day, Neil Simon play to close out of town before, and he did eventually bring it into New York with another reworking. But anyway, so I got a call from Lincoln Center and from John saying, would you come, we're doing this little play, it's just 6 weeks, limited engagement, the Mitzi Newhouse, the little theater at Lincoln Center. And we were already in rehearsal, and our lead actress left, and we have to do it because we have some script. Please, would you come do it? And I said, I don't ever want to do a play again. I got to make some money. I mean, this is just, everyone in the company was completely upset. And I said, oh, please come and read it. So I came and read it with the company, and Jerry Zak says, I'm not going to try to persuade you. I'm never going to persuade an actor to do anything. But they were all like this. And basically, because they had to do it had to be done,
Yeah.
So I said, all right, and we did it, and I think about 3 weeks later we were opening. It was a lot of... And then the first dress rehearsal, where there was an audience there, you suddenly had a sense, when the audience was responding to it, that this bizarre play that seemed to be so inchoate on the page, and it's so difficult to know how it was going to communicate, had a life. It just touched an audience in some way, in its most comedic ways and its most serious ways. And we went into preview for about 3 weeks and shaped it. By the time we opened, it went through the roof. Yeah. And so this little thing I thought was going to be 6 weeks of my life ended up being 4 years of my life. And I did a production in London, which was hugely successful and won the Olivier Award. And then, of course, it made it into a motion picture. And it turned out to be one of the most extraordinary experiences of my life.
At what point in the process does it get talked about being made into a film? Where do you hear that?
When it was a huge success in the summer, I think it was 1990, and then they were going to move it up to the Beaumont, the big theater upstage at Lincoln Center, and it got instantly had tremendous spotlight upon it, and you saw people in the audience who were sitting there sort of, sniffing another one, yeah. And especially female actresses of a certain age, a certain degree of fame. And then I had to leave the play to do a movie for a couple of months, and when I came back, we moved it upstairs. And that whole winter, there was a lot of discussion, and the deal was made with Fred Skepsey and to do it, and then they had to write it. In the course of all that winter, John Guare and Fred would come and see the show and talk to me about it, and John did this extraordinary thing, which I asked him not to do. He put it in his contract that I had to play the part. And I said, this is one of my best friends. I said, I don't want our friendship to suffer because you're under this obligation that, and he said, no, don't be ridiculous. He said, if you weren't already, a motion picture actress, I would never do this. I would never jeopardize my piece. And Fred Skepsey did the same thing. And it was just an amazing, leap of faith. And then I left the play, I came back, we went to London and did it. And it really took a good year and a half before the script was in place and we were really ready to roll, almost 2 years.
Now, when you talk about him putting you in there, does that, and I don't know that much about how you prepare and you as a person preparing to work, but does that put pressure on you? Do you think, oh, I've really got to make sure this works? Or can you remove yourself enough to say, separate those things?
Well, both. I mean, your real obligation is to do the second, is to prepare yourself and do the best job you can. But you can't help but feel a certain pressure because you're aware and you're made aware, because that's the nature of the situation, that this is a very unusual thing for an actor, for a writer and director to let an actor recreate original role in a totally new medium, which I remember Fred used to refer to as me putting toothpaste back into the tube. And, and he, as an exercise, actually, when we were in rehearsal for the movie, he made me say everything in a monotone, and for about 2 weeks. And then we had a drink afterwards, and he said, I bet you're wondering why I've been such a bastard for the 2 weeks. And I said, well, it did cross my mind. But I knew he had a reason, and I just trusted him. And sometimes it was hard because moments on stage that had been an entirely different kind of tone to it that might have been very big, very comedic, very large. In the screenplay was written in a context that was totally different, but they're exactly the same words. And I would say to Fred, look, I'm not resisting what you're asking me to do. I just got to give me about 30 seconds so I can sort of reprogram stuff in my head. But I was very much aware, consciously aware, that was the process that was going to have to happen. And I also was aware that he wouldn't let me off the hook until I'd given him exactly what he wanted. And I said, you just keep asking me and pushing me, because I know that you guys know where you want this to go. Yeah. And if there's this tone shift and this shift, I'm just going to do it. I'm not going to cling to something I did before. But sometimes it was difficult because there was a safety in that.
Oh, yeah. When you watch the piece back, can you just watch it as an audience member? It's been
I don't
10
know.
years.
I haven't. We speak now. I haven't watched it again in 10 years. So
really?
Tonight I'm going to. They're going to screen it here at the Museum of Fine Arts in Houston, and I'm going to sit there and watch this thing that I did 10 years ago. So. And part of that's going to be like, oh yeah, I remember that day when we shot that. I remember, because it's going to be it's going to be like a photo album,
right?
But I'm very, very proud of it. So I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Yeah. Another thing you did was the Matthew Shepard story. You did it for TV. And if I understand the story correctly, you got to know Judy Shepard, who you played in the film. Does that change how you approach your role then?
I didn't get to know Judy that well. I met her before this was even thought of a year before. I'd given her, presented her with an award at an event for an organization, and we'd met, and I met Dennis, etc. And then about a year later is when we went to film it, and she was around the set. She certainly vetted the script, but Sam Waterston and Sam playing her husband, we both agreed that it would be almost improper for us. We weren't doing some imitation of Judy and Dennis. And she wasn't really comfortable being physically around. We were shooting scenes. She very much not only monitored the script, but also would see dailies. And that seemed to work out better for all of us, because there's no way you can try to reproduce what went on between any couple in their private lives, much less these two people who went through this extraordinary ordeal, only with their son's death, but with the way they had to deal with, in this particular case, the issue of the death penalty, but even the entire media blitz, you name it. I mean, So we didn't really want to be part of that kind of investigation. But ironically, she said afterwards, I think she said in a speech to me, her friends said that I did Judy Shepard better than Judy Shepard did Judy Shepard, which I think was high praise. So sometimes you run a parallel track. Yeah. You don't try to get in and do imitation of people.
Is that hard to do to be involved in a piece that is so in the center of a storm of public relation and public outcry?
It may be. We didn't find it so. The actual filming, because it was made, this wasn't a piece that was jumping on a bandwagon of something that was in the courts at the time, which I'm not putting those down, but it wasn't that kind of thing. As a matter of fact, the focus of the piece was on them a year after Matthew had been murdered, in the second trial, the second murderer, and it was really focused on a weekend in which they had to make this kind of moral decision of whether they were going to go for the death penalty or not. I mean, it was really about how you balance a certain desire for retribution, and at the same time you want to honor the memory of this child, and that was kind of the nutshell. So it was done. I mean, I think several years after he had been killed, and the whole furor over the death, and so there wasn't as if we were in the headlines every day, and that's not what the intention was.
Right, but it was still, I would say, a very rewarding experience for you.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. It definitely was.
And then, of course, everyone would get on me if I don't bring up West Wing, and I know you mentioned it at the beginning. West Wing, how did that come about for you? And another question, just to jump on that too.
2 questions at a time.
Yeah.
Okay.
As a First Lady, are you looking at other First Ladies and trying to grab from them, or is she totally your First Lady?
She's, like most First Ladies, her own person. I mean, you wouldn't compare, Hillary to Laura. I mean, I don't think they do it, so why should I? Abigail is definitely her own person, and it's the most curious thing to me about it is when you do something for it's now been 5 years, you realize it's the most curious kind of category. It's just like the longest movie ever made, because it's 5 years of my life, 5 years of an audience's life, and 5 years of all of our lives, acting in it. So this is this long art form, if you will. And I've never done this before, and it's really curious. But what's interesting about it is we are none of us exactly the same people we were 5 years ago. Neither is Abigail, and neither is Martin, and neither is Jed Bartlett. And neither is our country. So you sort of have this. You don't. It's not like you take a text and say, "Here's a beginning, middle, and end."
Yeah.
You're just doing this kind of day in the life. You sort of drop into that life 5 years later. It came about just as it could have come and gone in an instant. Agents talk to managers, talk to producers, and I was on location, and they called me and said, "Would you like to, we've got 5 days off. You want to go back to LA?" And I'd seen the show and admired it enormously. And I said, "Oh, it was very complicated." But I said, "Oh, well, what?" At the end of the day, I got on the plane and showed up. And but I had very little to do in the first one, and I said, "Oh, this is too bad. This is in and out, never happen again." But there seemed to have been a big response to it, and from these, I think I said maybe 10 lines or something in the first one. I never really thought it was going to go anywhere. And then the second one, about 3 months later, Aaron got the right idea of making me a doctor, and also brought up the whole issue of the MS situation, which was completely off the top of his head as far as I could tell, but that's how he writes, that's how he does things. And then it started, and that was 5 years ago.
Why do you think as a whole it has worked so well?
Well, I'm happy to see it's worked so well because it's so beautifully written, it's so carefully approached by everyone involved in it. I mean, it's at the top of their game. I mean, the bar is set so high and was in the beginning. The way it looks, the camera work, the actors are spectacular. Aaron himself, who was involved in the first 4 years of it, and John Wells, for that matter. That's just that kind of excellence. It is a golden age, I think, we're in television, long-form drama like that, because there's about 3 or 4 guys out there that are really doing beautiful work, and West Wing is way up there. And I think it is massive quality. It's dense. They don't talk down to an audience. It's dense in terms of information, and subtle in terms of behavior, and I think it's intriguing to people.
What do you think you learn about the television audience by seeing that show succeeds?
Well, I don't know what you learn about them more than, don't underestimate your audience. Yeah. Because it's like if you watch an opera, you may be watching an Italian opera, you may not understand Italian, you may not really be an opera fan, but if people are doing it right, you have an understanding of things on one level. And if someone knows a lot about opera, they understand it in addition to another. If someone also speaks Italian, they got another appreciation. I think you can watch West Wing just about human beings in a workplace interacting and under enormous pressure, or you can learn about politics, you can learn about government. And it's also one of the things that's really a great thing to see more than once. People come back to it and get a little nugget of information. And I think people like to learn something. I think it's satisfying. And at the same time, they don't, for the most part, neglect just a certain dramatic push. These are every one of those characters are so individually shaped without cliches that they're very satisfying to watch, each on their own. And it's great to watch them all interact.
Yeah. I don't know why this comes to mind now, but I know way back you did a sitcom.
Yes.
Stockard Channing, Just Friends, I think was the name of it.
Yeah.
When that show was canceled, I guess they reworked it too in the middle there.
Yes, they did 2. It was like 2 half seasons.
Were you very bothered when that show canceled? And now looking in hindsight.
Yes and no. I owned that show. In terms of the deal, I was like no, it's interesting. That was 1979 and 80, and today I would definitely have my name up there. But then I didn't think it was seemly in some way, so just you can make of that what you will. However, it was run through my own company and this and the other, so I wasn't just a hired hand on it. It was a real 24/7 thing, which had its downside as well. But I have nothing but respect for the sitcom, because I'm so aware of how difficult it is to tell those stories, and everything behind the scenes that goes on with it. Having said that, I was working in the second year with a man who was a who had done the Andy Griffith Show. He was a real veteran and a wonderful guy. And he, when I was in New York doing this play, when it was canceled, he sent me a telegram saying, this could be a blessing in disguise, which was an amazing thing to say at that moment because it all seemed like a disaster. But it turned out it really kind of was, because I was free to go out and take my chances yet again, and in the open waters. Was kicked out there into the ocean.
Yeah, well, someone said to me once, every time a door closes, a window opens, or vice versa. There's
and
always
sometimes someone's pushing you through the window,
yeah.
and you don't know where you're going to land.
Where are they pushing you now?
Well, I'm still in a nice safe harbor,
yeah.
you see, and but that window will that door will close and a window will open. I'll be forced to go out there again and see if I can fly. But
is there some challenge that you want to take on that you haven't had yet in your career?
Well, everything's going to be a new challenge. I mean, the river keeps moving. I don't know what it does. We'll see what's around the corner.
Well, I thank you very much for taking the moment to sit down with us and talk with us.
Thank you.
A pleasure. Stockard Channing. To order a transcript, call 866-652-3378 or send $6.95 to the address on your screen. Please include the name of the guest.